Resident Evil Revelations is the most underrated Resident Evil of all time. I said that about 3 years ago when I first played Resident Evil Revelations. No, that sentence is not a joke, although it isn't fully true, because I've never played through Resident Evil 3 or Code Veronica, so those could be in the mix, but I have played through Resident Evil 0, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, Revelations 1, and 2. Now, I hadn't played Revelations in about 3 years, and I noticed it was on sale in the PlayStation Store. So I pondered to myself, I got a couple weeks before Resident Evil 2 Remake releases. Why not fill the gap with more Resident Evil? So I did. Does Resident Evil Revelations still stand up to my original sentence of most underestimated in the franchise? Stick around to find out. This is the review of Resident Evil Revelations.
Resident Evil Revelations.
So we start off, and immediately I'm captivated by the game's main menu theme. I've often said to have a great game, you gotta have a great main theme, something that sucks you in straight from the main menu. And Revelations 1 accomplishes that. The rare time a game can establish a main theme that is unique and memorable is, well, rare. Don't take my word for it, just listen to this for a minute.
That sounds good.
While we're on the topic of the game's soundtrack, I'd like to dedicate a few minutes to the impressive sound design this game has. In my own honest words, going back and playing through Revelations 1, the biggest surprise was how well the sound design really held up. I mean, combined with the game's setting, which we'll talk about later, it gives Revelations 1 an impressive ambiance. Here are just a couple examples of some pretty cool things you'll hear in this game. Zombified Rachel. This is the Queen Zenobia! Except creepier and scarier.
This is the Queen Zenobia.
These little ass annoying water dweller dudes. Now those are just the standouts. Trust me, there's a lot more sound design than that. But for now, we will move on to part 2 of this review. Part 2, welcome back, Jill. Oh, and hi, Quentin Keith. Okay, you'll find many characters throughout Revelations 1, 2 of which are mainstays in the franchise between Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. Now, as much as I love Chris Redfield in the game, honestly, it seems like he could have just disappeared from the game and I wouldn't care, because he only had 2 chapters that weren't really that important, and it seems like they only added Chris Redfield just for the sake of having Chris Redfield in the game. While we're on the topic of Chris Redfield, there's one thing I like to point out that was really weird. You see, Chris Redfield, he's pretty fit, he's pretty strong. He punched a boulder once.
Just hold on, Sheva!
That is infamous. There's one part in this game where Chris was having to rescue Parker. He was holding on to him, and instead of just pulling up right away, he struggled his ass off.
Just not my night. Damn it! Good times, Jill. It was a nice ride.
What?
See you guys.
What the frick was that? What? Not only is that bad, the bloody guy, Parker, lives after falling into the hell pit of fire.
Sure, he'll be back soon.
Damn it!
Now, Chris isn't the biggest character standout flop in the game. You see, throughout the game, you'll meet some well-developed characters like Parker, Clive O'Brien, Jessica, and even Raymond. My main negativity for the characters pretty much directly shines right down onto Quentin Keith.
Jackass here. We arrived at Valkoinen Mock Airport.
Here are a few examples of why they literally suck and don't fit in this game at all, like zero. They're obviously only there for their comedic relief, which is worse when you hear their dialogue.
He's turning guppies into jaws.
They're only in the game for a couple chapters, which means you don't get enough time for character development.
You two, get ready to move.
I hate snow. Snow hates you.
And some may argue, well, we only got a couple chapters with Parker and a couple with Chris. But Parker was with Jill the entire time, which we played as Jill for 80% of the game. And we already know who Chris Redfield is, so we don't need to know who he is. And I don't know if this is me being too harsh, but if they just ripped Quentin Keith out of the game, I don't think I would miss them much, as they do serve their purpose as the story progressor, as a plot developer. They don't really bring that much to the table. So I've talked about the characters and sound design, but there is one more thing I'd like to point out. That thing is the Queen Zenobia.
Incredible.
The Queen Zenobia.
One thing I've heard from gamers alike is that they don't like it when a developer uses the same map and retraces the steps. So you have to go through the same area. They call it lazy. And maybe it is, but I see a solid positive in having to go through the same level multiple times, which leads me to my next topic. The setting. Retracing still works. So the Queen Zenobia. It's a staple in this game. It plays a very big impact, especially in the feeling of the game and the ambiance. It takes on the role of the main setting for about 85% of the game, which I love. You see, I've always been a big advocate of retracing your steps in game and just using one setting as a whole for just pretty much the whole game. And no, I'm not counting open world games in this topic, because as though that is one level, one world, it's massive most of the time. Take this for example. Would the mansion in Luigi's Mansion be as iconic as it is, you know, for people who've played it today, if you went into the mansion and then like an hour of gameplay later you move on to a different mansion, and then after that you move on to a different place? I don't think the mansion would be as iconic. I'm not saying that the mansion in Luigi's Mansion is as iconic as the Queen Zenobia, but I hope you get my point. Now, some may argue that games that don't sit in one setting can also achieve a great level in a game or setting, and you're absolutely right. Take Resident Evil 4's main village, for example, an instant classic.
Vayan por detrás. Why are these people? What are they planning?
So what's the main result for Revelations 1? I won't really be scoring it on a scale of 1 to 10, as I've already played Revelations 1 before, and this review was more oriented towards my opinions looking back at this game and seeing if it held up the sentence of most underestimated Resident Evil in the franchise. And I think it still is. Resident Evil Revelations is a treasure, a hidden gem buried away from the main series, a surprise if you will. Sure, some bad dialogue lingers in the game, but for the most part, the game thrives on a mixture of classic Resident Evil, which we have come to love, and the more modern-ish Resident Evil style. And I say ish because Resident Evil 5 came out 10 years ago.
It was 10 years ago.
What are your thoughts? What do you think is the most underestimated Resident Evil of all time? Resident Evil 4? 7? 6? 1? I don't know. What do you think? Comment down below. And I'll see y'all next time for probably a Resident Evil 2 review. Really in depth. I'll actually give that a score, so hopefully you guys will get excited about that. Anyways, see you guys next time. Peace. Thanks for sticking around till the end. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Do all that stuff if you want. Also, Patreon links in the description if you want to support the channel. 50% of the proceeds go directly to charities for the environment. Really good cause. Support my channel. I'll appreciate it. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Peace.